Further debate? The member from Guelph.
Speaker, it's always an honour to rise to speak in this House today on the government's budget bill. And this budget talks a lot about highways, fantasy tunnels, and booze, but it doesn't actually talk about investing in people. And where that is most profound is in the housing portion of this budget, where you're seeing historic lows in housing starts, record highs in housing costs. The government's doing nothing to bring in zoning changes so we can build homes people can afford in the communities they know and love where we already have infrastructure. Nothing in this budget to reverse the 30-year underinvestment in nonprofit and co-op housing. Secondly, you see it in healthcare. We have a province right now, 2.5 million people without access to a family doctor or nurse practitioner. We have rural hospitals experiencing unprecedented closures, and yet Ontario, with this budget, remains dead last in Ontario per capita funding for healthcare. As a matter of fact, it would take an additional $13 billion just to get Ontario up to the Canadian average when it comes to healthcare. We see it in lack of investments in our students. The government still hasn't reversed the $1,500 per student cut to education that we've experienced in Ontario since they were elected in 2018. That means higher classroom sizes and less supports for students with special needs. We see it in post-secondary education where the budget is actually cut an additional $1 billion for colleges and universities, where again, Ontario dead last per capita funding for post-secondary education, even though it's so vital to our economic success. It would take an additional $7.2 billion just to get Ontario up to the national average at a time when we know our competitive advantage is investing in our young people, our workers. If you're a person with disability in this budget, Ministry of Community and Social Services cut $200 million. People on disability support being forced to live $1,300 a month when average rent in this province is almost $2,000. That math does not add up. Climate. Like, it's bad enough that the government is leading the country in increasing in climate pollution. Our grid is 10% dirtier, but now they're actually going to cut firefighters, wildland firefighters, at a time right now when we're speaking in northwestern Ontario, eastern Manitoba, we have fires that are leading to the evacuation of communities. And I'm just going to close by somebody who drives to Queen's Park in my electric vehicle every day. When I drive here and I see those cyclists whizzing by me, I say, thank you, cyclists, for choosing affordable transportation that makes my life easier as a car driver.
Questions? Member from Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes.
Thank you, Speaker. To the member opposite on that, since he brought up the fact that he drives an electric car, can the member support the measures that we have in the budget to make it easier to get those critical minerals out of the north so that we can increase the number of electric vehicles that he drives? Or does he think that we should be doing that mining in other jurisdictions that aren't as ethical as Ontario is?
Response?
Yeah, I appreciate the question from my friend from Peterborough any day of the week. Absolutely, I support critical mineral mining. What I don't support is trampling on Indigenous rights and the constitutional duty to consult. What I don't support is not having environmental protections in place in the peatlands. What I don't support are special economic zones that eliminate labor laws, environmental protections, and other laws that protect the people and places we love in this province. We can be a global leader, Speaker, in environmentally responsible mining that partners with Indigenous communities, but only if we respect those communities.
Questions? The member from Niagara.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe the member from Peterborough won't ask a question like that again. just a suggestion. Just a question, member. The AG report was very clear. They said that we should be investing in urgent care centres instead of closing them. In my riding, they're closing them down. They used to go 24/7. Now they're less. Our emergency rooms have 12 to 19 to 20 hours hallway medicine. Do you think the AG is correct in investing in urgent care centres, or do you think the Conservatives are correct in shutting them down.
Member from Guelph.
Thank you, Speaker. I always appreciate answering questions from my friend from Niagara. Obviously, the AG is right. Not even just right in terms of improving health care, but improving the fiscal performance of our healthcare system. It is far cheaper to have urgent care centers available to the public than it is to force people to go to emergency departments. So we can improve care and lower costs at the same time, so then we can take those cost savings and actually ensure that the 2.5 million people who don't have access to a family doctor or nurse practitioner have one. So we don't have to close emergency departments in rural hospitals. Let's make smart, fiscally responsible choices that put people and patients first.
Questions? Member from Ajax.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member from Guelph for his comments talking about housing, because that is one of the biggest challenges that I think we're facing still as a province, as a country. We don't have enough housing supply right now. So I'm curious from the member for Guelph what he would have liked to see in the budget, because it really wasn't in the budget, on housing, and how do we get shovels in the ground now, not 3, 4, 5, 6 years later.
Member from Guelph.
Thanks. I think it's my first time answering a question from the member from Ajax, so thank you for that. Well, first of all, I'd like to see housing start numbers in the budget that actually even show that the government has any hope in heck of meeting our housing targets. We need to average 150,000 housing starts a year in Ontario. The budget projects 72,000 for this year. Half of where we need to be, actually less than half of where we need to be. So I've put forward legislation that would legalize housing, removing the red tape for gentle density and mid-rise housing so we can increase housing supply of homes people can afford in the communities they know and love, where we already have infrastructure in place. That is the cheapest and fastest way to increase housing supply. Second, 30 years of us not investing in nonprofit and co-op housing, 30 years of underinvestment. This budget fails to even move us in that direction.